I only recently realized I've never done a detailed review of what a DISC behavioral assessment is, on this channel at least, even though I use it all the time with my clients in our coaching relationship. So keep watching, and I'm going to tell you exactly what the DISC behavioral assessment is, a little bit about where it came from, and how you can use it to help you understand why you do the things that you do. Hi, my name is Shawn Sommerkamp, and this is Motivationeer Christian Coaching. I post 2 videos a week, so please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you can be reminded when I do. Please also consider becoming a member at Motivationeer.com. Your membership really supports this channel. Thank you. Last year, during my weekly Saturday executive coaching Zoom sessions, I did one on dealing with work jerks. Hint, they're not jerks. The reason why I did this, it's a 90-minute session, group coaching with people all over the globe, is to help people understand exactly how to address difficult relationships at work. If you want to get a lot of detail about where the DISC assessment actually comes from, please go to my website, become a member, and you can access that and another 25, 30, 90-minute long group coaching sessions that I did last year, with another 25 or more coming this year, 2021. So very briefly, as I mentioned on this channel before, the DISC behavioral assessment was developed by a guy named Moulton Marston. What's interesting about Mr. Marston is that he is the guy who invented Wonder Woman, and he developed the very early type of tool that we now refer to as the lie detector test. He noticed that something happened to people's systolic blood pressure when they were lying, not telling the truth, which is why Wonder Woman has the lasso of truth to compel people to tell the truth. Now, I can't get into all the details of who the government hiring him, where he did the research, how he came up with this amazing tool known as the DISC assessment, but it's really great stuff. So please go to my website, become a member, and you can access all of that data. What I want to do now is talk specifically about what the DISC wheel tells us about our own behavioral styles. And I hope it'll kind of explain to you why you think the way that you think and maybe do some of the things that you do at work. Help demystify, perhaps most importantly, why other people do and behave what they do at work. All right, so let's start with this very simple diagram, and we're going to use it in stages, and it's going to build. This is the initial DISC wheel. You'll notice in the wheel there are 4 quadrants from the top right up to the top left in a clockwise. It's D, I, S, C. D is for dominance, I is for influence, S is for steadiness, and C is for conscientiousness. Now, the relationship of people that score high on the D spectrum, or high on the I, or high on the S, or high on the C, really dictates why we get along well with people, why we don't get along well with other people. I want to break this down for you now. Overall, by the way, if you've never done a DISC assessment and you want to do one, it does cost a little bit of money, but I make it very affordable. Just email me and say, hey, Shawn, I'm interested in a DISC assessment, and I'll set it up so that you can get a DISC assessment, take it, and get your results. But very high level, with a little bit more detail than maybe most people get, but I want to give to all of you, my faithful listeners and followers. The D, I, S, and C basically illustrates our behavioral patterns. So if you look at the right of center, the D and the I, these people tend to be fast-paced. People that are high in dominance or high in influence think quickly, on the go, they're kind of witty, they're driving conversations, they seem to kind of anticipate what you're going to say. Whereas those that score left of center, the S, steadiness, C, conscientiousness, tend to be slow-paced. This means if the D or an I is speaking to an S or a C, the D and the I might want the S or C to kind of speed up the conversation. If you're an S or a C and you're speaking with the D or an I, you kind of want them to not race ahead, to think more carefully before they just spout things out of their mouth. This obviously creates a little bit of tension. Interestingly, the C and the D, which is above center, are data-focused people, while the S and the I, below center, are people-focused. So if someone is a D or a C and they're focusing on data and they're talking to someone that's an S or an I, focused more on people, the Ds and the Cs will get kind of frustrated with an S or an I because they want the S or an I to focus on getting things done numerically that can be measured, key performance indicators. Where an S or an I, speaking to a C or a D, might feel the frustration because they want the D or the C to focus less on the data and more on the human factor. People, have compassion, not just roll over people. So this creates a little bit of that tension as well. So you have Ds that are fast-paced, data-focused, Is that are fast-paced, people-focused, S that are slow-paced, people-focused, and Cs that are slow-paced, data-focused. You will notice that the dichotomy between the Ds, and the S's is very large. Fast-paced, data-focused really have, in a sense, an arch enemy in slow-paced, people-focused. So if you really have a tough time getting along with someone at work, it might be that you're an S and they're a D, or you're a D and they're an S. Same is true with C's and I's. C's are slow-paced, data-focused. I's are fast-paced, people-focused. Those two have a very intense dichotomy. They tend to not get along very well either. It's important to realize this because it's not they're being a jerk or you're in sin doing something wrong against them. It's just the way that our behavioral styles are. Now, here's a couple of other very important points to note. D's and I's communicate in a very direct fashion. They like to get right to the point. They don't want to beat around the bush. Whereas S's and C's tend to be indirect. And this goes very nicely with the slow-paced. They tend to think internally and beat around the bush in the conversation, not wanting to get directly to things, wanting to kind of leave room for people to move around and not pin anyone down. So D's and I's communicate in a way that makes others, like S's and C's, feel like they're trying to accuse them of something sometimes or pin them down, where S's and C's might come across to D's and I's like they're trying to evade or hide something. Very interestingly, that's not what's happening at all. It's just different behavioral styles. What's also interesting to note is because D's and C's are data focused, they tend to be guarded in the way that they communicate. They don't just open up about themselves. Again, they're more focused on data. Where S's and I's tend to be more open in the way that they communicate. They like to relate in a humanly way, interpersonally, so they get everything kind of out on the table. This makes D's and C's very uncomfortable. Whereas S's and I's become uncomfortable because D's and C's tend to hold everything really close to the vest. They don't want to be too forthcoming. So S's and I's tend to wonder, okay, D's and C's are hiding something or they have something against me. The last important thing about this wheel that I want to communicate is this idea of the environment and how D's, I's, S's, and C's view the environment. C's and D's tend to view the environment around them as unfavorable, which is why they focus so much on data. Because the environment tends to work against them, they want to kind of stay ahead of it by having data. Where S's and I's tend to sail through life feeling like things really do tend to go their way, that the environment is favorable to them. They tend to be more upbeat, positive, more easily relatable with other human beings. Interestingly, D's and I's tend to feel like they're more powerful than the environment. So even though D's feel like the environment is unfavorable, they do feel like they can do something about it. I's believe that the environment is favorable, but they can still, move it and work with it through people to get the things that they want to get. C's and S's, on the other hand, tend to look at the environment as something they can't influence. They're not able to change it. They're less powerful than that environment. So you have a C who is looking at the environment as unfavorable and they're not able to do anything about it. You might notice someone that is like a C will complain a lot, or they tend to be grumpy or carry a chip on their shoulder. Where S's, even though that they feel like they're less powerful than the environment, do believe things tend to go their way, which means they're going to be conciliatory. They're going to help other people cope with the difficulty of what's going on instead of really believing that things can be changed about it. Now, this wheel, again developed by William Moulton Marston, I highly recommend if you've never done one, please reach out to me. I'll get you set up with the test. Again, it's a small fee. The guy did some great research. I won't get into the details of it now. You can find it again on the membership site that really demonstrate this is solid science. A lot of other behavioral tools, which really are personality assessments, have been developed on the back of the DISC tool. If you do some research on the best behavioral assessments out there, even if you search personality assessment, you'll notice DISC is always in the top 2 or 3 of everybody's chart. I highly recommend it. I use it all the time with my clients. It really does help us understand ourselves. But with 2 simple questions, you can quickly discern whether someone that you're working with is a DIS or C. Then here are the 2 questions, which in the DISC tool they referred to as power questions. Power question number 1, is the way that this person communicates open or guarded? And is the way this person communicates direct or indirect? You'll be able to tell in a very short period of time if the person communicates direct or indirect, guarded or open. This means if they're guarded and direct, they're a D. If they're open and direct, they're an I. If they're open and indirect, they're an S. If they're indirect and guarded, they're a C. When you understand what the other person's behavioral style is by answering these 2 questions when you're thinking about them, it'll help you adapt to them, which is what we want to do. This is the idea of emotional intelligence and why it's so hugely important to keep focusing on emotional intelligence so we can relate to others and develop high-performing teams, get along well with our boss, our employees, the board of directors, our venture fund who's, funding our business, whatever it is. Do the DISC assessment, reach out to me, I'll set you up with one. Understand how you are and how you behave so you can adapt to how others are and how others behave. Ultimately, I believe this is a great way that we can learn to love others, even when they're diametrically opposed to us. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for 2 new videos each week. Tell me in the comments below about your career situation and I'll make a video for you with a shout out. You can also become a member at Motivationeer.com. Your career is not just a way to make a living, it's a way to transform the world.